Welcome to the Founder to Leader podcast, where we unpack the human and relational dilemmas founders face when leading scaling organizations. I'm Yohanna, I'm your host and program manager for the leadership development program with the same name, Founder to Leader. And in each episode, I'm joined by a founder, a researcher, and a leadership coach, each bringing their own unique perspectives to the dilemma. So let's get started. Welcome back to the Founder to Leader podcast. In this episode, we are talking about talent and hiring, from the fear of losing the family feeling when hiring beyond the founder's inner circle, to the pain of outgrowing a loyal first hire, to the question of whether to bet on senior experience or junior potential. I'm excited to introduce you to our three guests. I have Rasmus, Ditlev, Vera, Rocha, and Uller with me here in the studio today. Okay, Rasmus, I'll start with you. You co-founded ØNSK back in 2017, and now, almost 10 years later, it's a certified B Corp coffee company with around 45 employees. And you also just acquired Damn Good Coffee Company.
Yes.
And you have managed to grow a mission-driven company while staying true to its values, which is a highly relevant founder perspective for today's episode. So thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And Vera, you'll bring the research angle. You are a professor at Copenhagen Business School, and your research is spot on for today as you look at affiliation-based hiring, meaning how founders recruit from their own network, and also how early recruitment choices shapes organizations in long term. So
yes,
thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And Nina, you'll bring the leadership coaching experience. You have over 30 years of leadership experiences spanning from tech to entrepreneurship and the military, including serving as a leadership advisor in Afghanistan. And today you bring your knowledge on how people collaborate in high-risk environment into your role as a leadership coach. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for inviting.
It's so great to have the three of you here. I think hiring is one of those areas where founders feel very excited and very anxious at the same time, because of course every new person that you bring in shapes the company. So I'm super excited to hear your perspectives and your learnings as well. Should we get started with the first dilemma?
Let's do it.
Perfect. Before I read it out loud, I also just want to make a quick disclaimer that all the names in the dilemmas are made up. So for our first dilemma, we have John, who has a fear of losing the family feeling when hiring beyond his inner circle. So John says, the first people I hired in my business 2 years ago were some of my old colleagues and people I knew from other startups and study group at university. From start, it has been important to me that we have a workplace where people love to be and where my employees have the freedom to have a healthy work-life balance while also building great things. I also strongly believe in giving people a lot of freedom and autonomy and want to build a culture around this. At this point, I think we have managed to build a strong family culture where we care about each other and do a lot of fun things together. But now that we're growing the team and I'm about to hire a new full-timer, which is a perfect candidate that fell into my lap and applied as an unsolicited, my hesitation is that it will disrupt our culture where I know everyone lives our value. Any advice? So Rasmus, when you hear this dilemma, what stands out to you about this founder's hesitation?
I think I can really feel the dilemma for him. Like I've been in some of these situations as well, and hiring also, as you say, is just such an essential part of founding a company or scaling a company, because it's one of the things that's driving the most for me, but it's also one of the most draining. And I think it's the thing that made me cry the most times in my startup time has been the frustrations around hiring, because it's really tricky. And you imagine a lot when you're doing interviews. You can sometimes picture this candidate in a perfect romantic scenario where everything is harmonizing and the family is just thriving. But families also comes sometimes with some pain and some conflict. I think I had actually kind of maybe the opposite feeling during our first hires than John did. I was very much thinking, it was around our third or fourth hire, I was thinking we need someone who's not a friend. I don't want to hire more of my friends. I want someone who's professional, good, who can just come in and do the role, who's good, and we don't need to have that relation maybe. And actually my co-founder then had a candidate who was one of his friends from back home, And I was like so skeptical. I was like, I don't think this is. I think we're past this time of hiring friends. We should find someone who we don't have that relation with. It's easier if something goes wrong. We have to fire them. Then it's going to be so messy. But we ended up going with this hire anyway because he was a good candidate, and he ended up becoming one of my best friends also outside work. So it's kind of like sometimes it's just unavoidable in those early years. I think you need the family feel, you need the closeness, also to sort of for the employees to accept the chaos and the lack of organization.
But what was it that made you realize that you didn't want to hire friends anymore? So where was the company then?
It was I think it was our fourth hire, and it was before we had any external investment, so it was just our own money, or like our own had to go into our budget of sales, and so it was not when we were scaling like really with external money. So it was also we were very cautious and didn't want to waste the money. But I also think since then, or now that we've scaled to 45, we don't have that mentality anymore. We don't develop really those relations with the employees anymore. And also it's not necessary anymore for them because they form relationship with other team members, not necessarily with the founders.
And that having this family culture can be beneficial in the beginning, but at one point when you start scaling, you also need to outgrow that. Do you agree or disagree?
I very much agree. So if I can bring my researcher hat to the conversation,
Please do.
What we see when we look at big data of all startups out there trying to mobilize their first hires, we do see that entrepreneurs tend to tap into their own affiliations first, right? People they work with before, people they went to university before, and that is super beneficial in the beginning, right? Because you save a lot of time, you reduce information asymmetries in the labor market, and it's much quicker to onboard these people. But what we see is that this tends to build a very similar team, right? People tend to be very similar to each other, which in the beginning is good for the culture, right? Because you kind of build this family feeling. You get everyone on board, and people commit and feel, willing to make the effort, work extra hours, long hours. But at some point, you need to break out of this loop and bring some professional hires, right? People that are more hired based on their skills, on the resources that they can bring to the team, and less on this feeling that we like to be together, right? These interpersonal attraction priorities, right? And I think that's what John is facing right now. And what we also see is that sometimes we assume that just because we don't know each other, you might not fit as well as others, right? Just because we didn't study in the same place or we didn't work in the same place, you are an out member. But that's not necessarily the case because we might be united by the same mission, the same interests, other interests that we don't know. And I think that making this transition not too far from founding is essential because otherwise you may create a culture that is very difficult to change.
So a family is good, but a family should also be able to take new members in and spread that culture. And so if you're afraid of ruining something, it sounds to me like he doesn't really know what it is that he has created.
Yeah.
So it's like let's keep it as it is. And often that is based on loyalty or history more than maybe trust in a role, competence. And that's the shift that has to be done when you go into scaling. You have to have very clear boundaries between roles and also be able to ask for what has to be done.
Exactly. Yeah. That reminds me of a related dilemma that the more people, the more similar people we bring into a startup, the more difficult it will be to allocate these roles and say, you take care of this and I take care of that. But at the same time, sometimes we are so similar that we could both do the same thing, right? And sometimes this diversity of backgrounds is necessary to make things easier in role allocation and create some accountability. Who is in charge of what?
Yeah.
And again, not delaying this transition too much, I think is essential. when companies are scaling. Yeah.
I think we've fallen into that trap of hiring people that were similar. Like that has also been appealing, even in external hires that were not friends, but hiring someone who was a bit similar to me and my founder and the team, management team. And that has some, I mean, also has some benefits. I think we've been effective, and we had this discussion actually with an employee that quit mainly due to it was not a cultural fit. And from the other side, we were also reflecting on this experience afterwards, and it was something like it was hard to manage. It was hard being a good manager for this person because we were so different.
Yeah.
Like, so it also comes with some challenge having, if you go for a big diversity in teams, it's good for creativity and imagine for some of the social dynamics maybe as well, but it can also be really tricky for as a man. It puts higher stakes as a leader to manage people who are very different from you, who view the world and tasks in a completely different way.
I'm curious now, also reading John's dilemma, because it sounds like he has already found the perfect candidate. What are some things that are important to consider when you're bringing someone new into a team that's already very well established? You have your informal roles, your internal jokes, a very strong culture, etc. So both for the new hire, but also how you prepare your existing team.
It seems like there is a feeling that maybe it's not this candidate doesn't fit perfectly in the family that he's talking about. So that really requires something of him, of not stepping out of the family, but being the one to remember to include, or like to make space for this new candidate as well, if they go along. But because otherwise, it's say the way they talk in the current team is maybe not so inclusive.
Yeah.
Because they are a very homogenous group.
Yeah.
And then someone else will just feel
They don't have
completely
the
out of
code.
it. And there's no one else to form
Yeah.
friends or like connections with in the team. Then it's John's role or responsibility to step out of the group and bring the other one in and manage that. And that is just a challenge. And it's something for John to consider. This might be, if John goes through with this hire, that might be this is when he becomes a leader. Like from hiring working with your friends is maybe not falling into the leadership category, at least. It's much easier. It's much more a group dynamic. Now he gets a responsibility and a challenge maybe, and potentially conflicts. Probably never conflicts in the group of friends working together, but now it's going to be, I think, for him something else, and that he needs to just be aware of that shifting dynamic and role for him, and if he's ready to do that.
I think this is exactly this. His kind of feeling about this is that there is a shift, and he has to be a grown up now. It's not that we cannot be nice, the niceness is not carrying on to this. So now he has to be stating what should it be. So I think by naming that we are in a transition right now, meaning that we have to take that kind of care that we did for each other earlier on as just part of who we were, into maybe some more structure, which is something we don't like sometimes. If we're entrepreneurs, we have had too much of it, but structure can actually be a way of scaling care. You can say, this is how we do things well. So what is it that we say that here we do things like that, giving new people the code for how do we work, and also to make a choice again, to be again conscious about what is it. But I absolutely agree, this is a grown-up job. This is a modeling phase, and a very important bridge from a startup where everybody can do everything, meaning also everybody has an opinion on how should things be done, into this is your role, this is my role, and looking at it from that perspective.
So if I am to summarize, the advice to John then is that when you professionalize your company, you need to let go of the family culture and you need to create boundaries around roles and maybe professional and personal relationships. The opportunity of hiring people in quotation marks that are outsiders is the diversity in how we think and how we operate, etc., which is usually beneficial for the company. But it also means that you need to invest in your leadership when you start leading a more diverse pool of employees as well. And it's also your responsibility to step out of the group and make sure that the new hire is included.
Yeah, and that it is not the new hires' guilt, your fault that they are not doing as they used to do, because it can very easily be the scapegoat of this is why we had to change, because now people like you came in here. So that has to be, as you also said, Vera, has to be worked before new hires comes in. It has to be open.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a reflection for John is it if it doesn't work, if it's a disaster, the cultural fit, is it John's responsibility, or is it whose fault is it? Right? Is it John's fault, or is it the new hire's fault?
Or is it actually a good culture if it cannot open up and take more people in there? So is it valuable? It's a good test.
It's easy, right?
Yeah.
Easier said than done.
I only brought easy dilemma to this podcast.
Thank you for that, Yohanna.
Should we move on to our second dilemma? A quick note, this podcast is brought to you by Founder to Leader, Denmark's most established leadership development program for founders with personnel responsibility. The program combines organizational psychology with experiential learning and is delivered by Copenhagen Business School and the Danish Industry Foundation. It's free to participate, so read more and apply at foundertoleader.dk. Our second dilemma is Christian, who is outgrowing a loyal first hire. And Christian says, I started my company in 2019, and one of my very first hires, who has been with me since start, is today our head of marketing. He has worked long nights, weekend, has done so many things for the company, and been part of all the crazy things in the first years. I genuinely don't think the company would be here without him. But now that we're growing to double-digit employees, it's becoming very clear to me that he doesn't have the skills we need anymore. It's difficult because I know he's so passionate about this company, but I'm also really worried that he won't be able to handle the responsibility in marketing, which is becoming increasingly important for the company. I can't really afford hiring another person for the role, but I also think we won't be able to make it unless we perform on some key activities. But I simply don't know if he has the right competences for that. I feel like the worst person to even consider letting him go. So how on earth do I handle this? So Vera, when you hear this dilemma, what comes to your mind?
Oh, that Christian has a tough job ahead of him. But I think it's a very common dilemma because what we also see typically in startup settings is that founders tend to hire what we call generalists, people that can do a lot of different things. There are no specified roles, but at some point when the company starts growing and becoming more professional and attracting other people from the outside, maybe investors, they need to have these more specialists in place. And this creates issues because either you hire these specialists now from now on, or you try to convert your generalists into specialists, which is not so easy, right? At the same time, I see that this first hire is very loyal and he did a lot for the company. So letting this person go might also imply, destroying a good relationship, destroying a friendship. And maybe this could even disrupt the company in itself because it could reduce the morale in other first hires, right? And they could start thinking, well, maybe I'm the next one being laid off. So you want to prevent those things from happening. I would say that maybe because what I read between the lines is that this first hire is very loyal. He has done a lot of work for the company. He has worked long nights. Maybe he's not yet there to be the head of marketing, but he could become. So one option could be, can we train this person to be more of a specialist now that we need this person? And is this person willing to accept the challenge? And if that's the case, then this could be a solution to both problems because I get to keep this person and I get to build slowly the head of marketing that I need. And having this conversation early on, I think is very important. So addressing the elephant in the room, because if instead Christian delays this conversation and more time passes and the more he realizes that he needs a head of marketing and this person is not the best fit, the more difficult it will be, because it will put the company success at risk and the friendship or the good relationship with this hire at risk. So it will risk two things and maybe risk the whole thing all at once. So my suggestion would be to try to have a conversation with this first hire and try to see what are the options. So is there, first of all, any other role where you could fit best? Maybe because marketing is not your, forte, but maybe there is something else you could do instead. Or maybe are you willing to develop into the person that we need, but you are not yet there? And maybe the person even recognizes that they need this training and upgrading of skills, and they might accept the challenge. So that would be my immediate reaction. But I'm curious to hear, Rasmus and Nina, if you think otherwise, if you have other, if you see other challenges that I'm not seeing or other solutions that.
I think both of them has been writing a lot while you have been talking to. So whoever wants to go first.
No, I think I agree with you. And it's this, if people feel, it's not just Christian knowing if somebody's not really filling the role, everybody else will know, and there's some dignity in being in that role and not really filling it. However, I have a challenge for Christian, because I would like him also to look at himself. So it could be that, coming back to what we talked about, that we all can do this job. Has this employee actually the stuff that should be marketed? So is the product in a place where they can talk about it? Do they have a one-pager on this and that? Is it so clear? Or is it actually like, I want you by magic to create marketing based on what I need? And since I think I'm just as good at things as you are, he might not really allow this person to do things his way. So this is just something I would ask Christian. Look at you. Did you look at yourself? Did you look at the things, the resources you gave this person? So, and apart from that, I really like that you are talking about the employee as a resource. That's the thing that we tend to forget, that they could have been us sitting in that situation. So there is so much knowledge and data to get from having a partnership in how do we understand this, and what should happen. Does Christian himself has a vision of what should happen within marketing for the next half year, for instance? If he can mention 3 things, how would success look within that field? Then they have something more concrete to talk about.
Yeah.
So what is it? He doesn't make it in marketing. What does that mean? I would ask Christian.
So maybe Christian could provide a roadmap of what the function entails.
Yeah.
And then they could find a common ground. Like, I know what I need as a founder, and I know what you need to achieve as a head of marketing. So can we meet in the middle?
But does Christian know that, or does he compare to people who are further on, what he looks at LinkedIn, or he's impressed by competitors who does this and that? Does he know what he needs in a pretty small, still double figure? But do they have the resources to do things exactly the way bigger companies are doing it? So what is it actually he's expecting? I think that's a good talk.
I feel extremely conflicted. Like I think I can't figure out what my stance is, but maybe it's it definitely. I agree also that I think overall I'm seeing that it seems like this is some feelings and considerations and doubts that Christian is going around with on his own. And it's 2019 they started the company, and it seems like this person's been on since almost the beginning. That they haven't had an ongoing dialogue. Maybe they've fallen into this family role, as we talked about, where it becomes uncomfortable to talk about competences, which it also can be between founders. Like, because you're sort of nominated for the seat, right? But what are you? Are you the best for it? So it seems like he's been going with these thoughts, but they haven't had a one-to-one. That haven't had he hasn't had a leadership role for this person, and now he's in a bit of a trouble because maybe they should have like I definitely think like this person sounds perfect for the company to have in the company. Someone who is working for the company, not necessarily just for own interest. Someone who is almost a founder, who do everything for the company and has done everything for the company. But now that it's maybe too late, and maybe they should have thought about how is your future role. Like if they did this 3 years ago, talked about how is your future role in this company? How do you need to develop to stay in this role? Could you imagine yourself being head of marketing when we are 100 employees? Like even having those conversations early enables you to say I probably need some more hard skills in marketing. I need to up qualify. We had the same, like I think we never got to this point. But we have one of our first hires in finance, who also got equity in the company and became a crucial part. Well, we had that conversation that if you are going to be the CFO of a company and with the ambitions we have, you need some more skills, because our accountants and the audits we get, they're not going to accept, like it's not going to be good enough, and we need someone who can have a strategic role in finance, so we don't have to think about that between the rest of the management team. And then he did up qualify, and he realized that if he wanted to grow with the company, then he also needs to develop his own skills. That would at least be the first option for me to explore and have an open conversation between them, because I need to be able to have that. Can he learn this? Or maybe it's not realistic. Maybe he needs to develop into a specialized role, and then we need to hire a head of marketing. I know he says he can't afford that, but maybe he needs to think about how do we get to that point. On the other hand, I'm thinking maybe it's one of those moments where there's some really tough conversations needed to be had, and that is also something that Christian has to learn.
Yeah, I think that's nailing it, because it's the real problem is probably that they don't have the talks.
Yeah.
It is not this thing in itself.
Now it's become a big thing.
It's becoming a big thing because they're not having. So stepping up as a grown-up to take those difficult talks, if it's like, what is it that makes it difficult for me? Is it that I, Christian, do not like to say things like that to somebody I like? And what is in between the lines here? And where is the main task, the raison d'etre for the company? If you keep that in mind, why are we here? It's more easy to steer after something and say, this is what we need. These are the competences that we need. And since we cannot fill it this way, how could we then talk about filling it together in other ways, so that it's pulling the question or the problem away from this person and into what is good for the company?
What is it that makes it so difficult to renegotiate relationships and roles within the company when you scale?
I think it goes back to what type of relationships you have with each other in the first place. Because if you are close friends, you like to have a good vibe between the two of you, right? And you tend to postpone these conversations for, as long as you can. If your prior relationship is more professional, like you have worked together in a different company, you are aware that these conversations are essential to have sooner. And I think you will have them sooner than if you were friends at school or if you are family members. And especially when there is maybe a subordinate and leader relationship. This interferes a lot with the relationship, right? So if we are friends outside the company, but inside the company I'm supposed to be your boss, that might create more difficult conversations that you prefer to not have. So I think that there is this intersection between roles and relationships, that the closer you are from a relationship perspective, the more difficult the role allocation might be. And the more professional your relationship is, the more natural will this role allocation be. And these conversations will emerge more naturally if you have, for example, worked together instead of just being friends or classmates.
I'm curious about that word professional, because I think professional is to do what's needed for the task of the company. And that can be done in many, many ways. And it's not necessarily not caring. It's very caring to be clear about roles and accountabilities and not having it, blurred lines between. However, we have this loyalty, and I think very often it's back to a feedback culture or not, so that we are nice, and the nice is like, I don't tell you that you're not doing things the way I think. So it's become me against you rather than how can we develop this. So it's again pointing at how can we see this. I have this perspective. You have that perspective. How can we together do things differently? So a lot about how actually we use words also. You've done that totally wrong. That's a hard one for any person. However, I really like that part of that. How can we explore to be doing more of that? So it takes something. It takes thinking to be leading people. It's an investment.
Definitely. I actually think is that to counter it. It was more like one of the things I've been struggling with. I'm a little shy of conflict. Like I don't like that setting, and you have to do it when you have employees, and you have to sometimes terminate contracts, or you have to have some really not so nice conversations. And one of my learnings I actually took from founder to leader was actually that also to accept what the standards that I set, because I was sometimes very seeking understanding why they were not delivering, or why they didn't do it the right way, or like always seeking the understanding. Is it me? Am I putting too high demands on my staff? But actually also thinking, well, the fact that I'm reflecting on that is probably that it's not too much, and I need to also say if I'm your manager, then I also set the requirements, and I also set the standards for what good is, and being okay with that as a man. It also made it easier for me to step into the role of saying, this is not good enough.
I would like to take it to the extreme and to say, I know this is not easy, but it's a good way of thinking. It's like, do I want the company to pay for the fact that I don't want to be not nice?
Yes, maybe
do I want to feel good enough, or do I want to do the right stuff? And when you think about it in that extreme, it's like, maybe I shouldn't pay from our runway in looking nice right now.
Yeah, maybe for some it actually helps looking at it in financial terms, right? Like, what does it cost to give it another month, or or some of the things you might think when you're in doubt.
Or if that person is not delivering, then that person cannot do that, and then we need to find a way to have that part delivered. And if you're not doing it, I have to take responsibility that we do get that delivery. So what do we do?
Yeah, and it sets standards for the rest of the team. If someone under-delivers, then the other might think, well, this seems to be the acceptable level of effort to put in. And that is really not the culture you need, and especially not in a startup where you need everyone to perform, especially in this phase. And I don't know how many there are, but you need everyone to be set to the same standards.
I have a last question, and that is, say that a transition is unavoidable and they cannot find a middle ground. How can this be handled in a way that honors the past without kind of damaging the relationship, both for Christian and this very loyal first hire, but also from within the rest of the team?
I think figuring out actually what is it that should be done has to be the first thing. So it's not just a fantasy that I need somebody who can do the marketing thing, and then he doesn't seem to do it. So figure out what is it actually, get more data about what's going on in marketing. And then, as also was mentioned, this combination of, is it possible within a timeline, let's say half a year or whatever, to hit those milestones? And if not, then there's a new discussion on what do we have to do in order for everyone to be free for something else,
Mm.
and also for the leader not to lose authority, because everybody is watching this, as it seems right now.
I can help comparing this person who's now head of marketing as a bit to a founder. It seems like he's maybe it's not founded, but he is almost in that level.
Yeah.
He's done the work.
Mm.
And if you imagine it was your co-founder that was this issue with,
And it can be.
the solution's maybe not to make up your mind and fire the person if that's what you conclude. It's to have the dialogue with your founder and include them in this, because it's different if it's a normal or like a who's not don't have this role, who haven't been part of this journey. I think it's a difference, and I would see what I could do to keep him in the company, but clearly not in this role, or at least he needs to develop very fast in the role.
Or have parts of it, as you also said.
Yeah, and see what they can work out together. And ultimately, Christian has to make the decision, because he can't. It's not they need to agreement on. But ultimately, he has to say, "This is not. Sorry, I gotta make some tough choices for my company, and we can't have you on board anymore." Maybe that's the conclusion. But I think I would definitely explore with the employee how to solve this, because he needs to be part of that. I think.
So if I am to summarize, and we are to answer Christian's question on how on earth do I handle this, then first of all, have honest and have direct conversation and keep having them. They are likely to be tough, but they still need to happen. And talk about what does the company need and how can we fit this employee into this. And remember then that language is important. So take a we point of view. And remember that avoiding that discussion is a huge risk, both for that relationship, for the business, but also within the team in general as well, because it sets the standard, and you need to set high expectation and high standards when you lead a company. And ask yourself honestly, Christian, do you know what success in marketing looks like now and in the coming months, etc.? And do you have a roadmap for that function? And also ask yourself, is it more important that I am nice or that the company performs?
Brilliant.
Good. And we solved that dilemma.
Easy.
Let's move on to the last one.
Yeah.
We have our third and our last dilemma. And this is Stephanie, who feels unsure whether to bet on senior experience or junior potential. So Stephanie says, I am the CEO of a tech company, and neither my co-founder or I have a sales background. And now we're finally about to make our first hire who can focus on driving our sales instead of me just winging it. The problem is that I don't know if we should go for someone senior who can bring in clients right away, even though this is a massive investment, or someone more junior who is cheaper but really hungry to learn and hopefully can become a star salesperson quickly. I am for and back with this and feel we haven't found exactly the right one yet. In your experience, what's the best thing to do? So Nina, in your experience, I'm curious, what is the best thing to do?
I think the first thing is to say, since she's looking for the best thing, is already a red flag for me. It's like either this or that. And when you have this, either this or that, it's like there is a sense of I can control this if I can make the right choice. However, this is a way more complex situation. And I think she's giving, even you said, should she bet on this or that, senior or junior? There's a lot of assumptions about that juniors are hungry and that a senior is bringing in customers, and I don't know, from somewhere, as if they're just able to pluck from a shelf somewhere. So, and the fact that she's been winging it, it tells me that there is not really a structure for sales. There is no sort of container for that part of the company. So if she's bringing in a senior, that's somebody who wants to execute on something. And he wants to know exactly what are our KPIs and what's our ideal customer. And there has to be a lot of structure and planning done for this part. It's a professional part. And winging it tells me that she's probably good at it to a certain extent. However, there's no roadmap for this. So either somebody like a senior would come in and go totally rock in like, I'll just do it my way or the highway, which very often happens if we bring in seniors. Not anything wrong with seniors, but it's like they can't do magic in a corner and then not interfere with everybody else. So it's very important that seniors are able to make other people learn from their experience, not being the single point of everything on that professional part. So it's just not selling. It's also how do you train the company in thinking about sales and how do they integrate with everybody else and everything else happening. And then the other one on a junior who's sort of magically to develop because they have a hunger, but developed by whom, coached by whom, following what kind of steps. So I see that Stephanie has to do quite some thinking, or at least understanding that there has to be done stuff. And maybe this, not betting on this or that, to think more in how can I complement this from different directions? Like, can I have a part-time experienced somebody who can come and help us to make a roadmap for this? And then I could use a junior who can be under the wings of another person. So combining it to get complexity ready for somebody else to take over this space, but also recognizing that, and that's sometimes difficult, that there I have to have people who can do the things that I cannot do, but they cannot do magic.
I think that is a perfect sentence for it. They cannot do magic, like, because I feel I'm sweating just reading this one. It's and I have this feeling, and of course I don't hope so for Stephanie, but I'm just thinking it will not go well. Like, and it's such a tricky thing with sales and scaling, and it's such it requires a lot of management. We've had this so many times, and we've made almost more bad hires than good hires in sale. And we have a team of 10 right now, and there's a lot of changing in the team, and it requires a lot of attention management. It's my co-founder, luckily, who has that one, but it's a full-time job, because it is not something where magic happens. You need to always push as a leader for salespeople, always be attentive, because sometimes when things doesn't work or when it's not fun anymore, there's a little bit, it very, very quickly gets extremely slow or stops completely. And also with senior, I've tried it myself, seen so many founders thinking that this person comes with 20 years of experience selling exactly our product. This can only be perfect. We can lean back and just watch the sales go through the roof, but it just doesn't happen, because maybe you get someone, we did that. We thought we cracked the code as well, hiring a sales. And what actually happened was that nothing happened. Like, because they didn't want to, she didn't want to do any calls, because she kind of felt she was past the time of doing cold calling. But we don't have a sales organization where you just get fed leads. So even though she came from really experience, she felt too good maybe to do those parts of the job, and was talking a lot about networking, network sales, and wanted to do interviews with employees to understand the product better. So we were just like, we just need someone who to kick in doors. So I think there's going to be learnings. I think is one of the keys, and what we learned in that phase when it's the first sales hires. At some point, of course, you need a sales organization. You can't just do it yourself. But I wrote down on my notes, I wrote see the monkey, and it was the thing we were always saying, and what we learned, that the customers in that phase, when you're selling a new product, they want to see the monkey. They want to see the founder. They don't want to get a junior or senior sales rep coming out. They want to see the ones who build it. So I think that Stephanie is the best salesperson they can hire. She's the most senior they can get, the most skilled, the most motivated. If she runs into problems, she's going to try and solve it instead of waiting for a manager to do it for her. And I would definitely explore maybe hiring someone to do something else. Like that was what we did. We hired a senior. She was there for no more than a month, and then we hired someone to take care of administration and finance and the production.
Yeah.
And then we said, now we hired ourselves as sales.
Yeah.
Me and my co-founder, and then we spent all our working hours selling because we hired someone else to take off all the other things.
Yeah.
And for her, it could be product development or tech support or whatever. Maybe it's easier to hire someone in that.
Yeah, I very much agree with both of you. I don't think there is a perfect solution because both solutions outlined in the dilemma have downsides. Like if you bring a junior, it will take much longer to start selling because the junior is learning. If you hire a senior, as Nina put it, well, this person might have a very clear idea of what to do that doesn't necessarily match with what the company needs. They might be very costly because, well, they need to be paid to compensate whatever they were doing instead. So your solution, Rasmus, that maybe she should take the lead and deal with sales herself could be actually a way to go. So not outsource this to anybody because maybe she will encounter other issues that she's not foreseeing yet. And maybe being the face of the company and going out there and showing that she's a legitimate CEO and she knows the product and she can do a good job could even be a better way, a third solution than these two solutions that right now we discussed so far.
We're winging it, but I think it would be good for her to as she's doing now gain the experiences of sales because even when you then hire someone for sales, when you need someone more or new, then you have the experience. You have you can tell all the anecdotes of how customers reacted to this and that and what worked, what didn't work, what was you need that if she's also to be the manager for the salespeople she hires, she needs to be part of the team at least. So if she goes out and hires someone, stay in the sales team for at least a good while, and be part of the because they also need the motivation of seeing someone who she's not too good to pick up the phone herself, and do cold call with them. It's a bit of a team effort, and it can be very hard sitting. I remember when we were at CSE, I was sometimes sitting alone doing these calling sessions, and it's brutal, because being rejected every 2 minutes and just keep on calling. We actually did, me and my founder, and also some of the other companies who are also doing sales in that phase, we would sit together for like a couple of hours and call, because then you can sort of laugh about it. You have the energy coming, and I think that was at least very important for us. And it is just the most important. Like, if they're in that phase of where they need to sell, then that's really where it's make or break for a lot of companies. If they can't, as found, it's I think it's a skill you need to have to sell or learn to be a founder. If she goes forward and hires, the hiring process is also really crucial on this one, because it's just a mentality, especially if it's someone who has to do the initial contact. It's a bit of a different process if it's someone who's got to be more like a consultant for a complicated software. But it's someone who's just kicking in doors, making initial contact, booking meetings for her maybe, or something where she can go through the details. Someone to take that burden off. We struggle a lot in that, and we've made many hires, and it's usually also someone that doesn't stay on for years. It's sometimes the student workers and stuff like that. And part-time is actually really good for that, because it's such a tough energy. But we did this thing in interviews where we do a role play. So they weren't prepared for it. We didn't tell them we were going to do it. So we were 2 people interviewing, and then at some point in the middle of the conversation, we'd ask, "Do you want to do a test call in this room now?" And then we did a fake call. So then I would sit with my hand like say ding 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 ding, and then we'd do a call. And there's like, you're calling this company. There are 50 employees. You're speaking to an office manager. Your goal is to book a meeting for someone else. and then they just zero preparation, just threw them into the call, and it usually went really poorly. But we could see also how much did they read up on the company, and how was their energy. Were they hesitating in doing the exercise, or were they just like yes, like they almost got excited about it? And then we give them feedback, some simple feedback, maybe ask a few more questions, or you talked a lot, or like maybe tone it down a bit, and then you ask them if they wanted to do it again, and then see if they could implement the feedback.
Nice.
And just do a slightly better call the second time. And that was really a key for us to seeing if they were hesitant doing those things, it was usually a bad fit, because you need a certain energy, and that they're okay with being rejected and calling again, and thrives of it. So it's just a unique kind of personality to hire.
I've been doing a lot of recruiting as well, and I would like to ask people, what was the most difficult thing you did, and what did you use in yourself in order to do that? And sometimes you get very interesting stories, like somebody who's been in figure skating, whatever, champion in the States. I remember her. And, it comes, all right, this is a person who doesn't mind making bruises on her knees, and who's going to the extreme in discipline. And so you get different angles when you ask people about their lives and their interests. And then you can sort of try to project that onto what do you need. So what do they use in themselves? Or somebody who, when she was a child, she was rowing a boat every morning to get to school from an island.
Wow.
It also says something very interesting about
resilience, discipline. Attributes that are hard to see sometimes in a CV, because these are things that you don't put on a CV. Right?
Yeah.
But they may matter a lot for the roles that you are hiring for.
So if we are to answer Stephanie's question about the best thing to do, Stephanie, we don't have one right answer for you, but what we can say is that if you decide to hire someone, remember that it's still your job to set the structure for the sales and to lead, to lead that hire and that function, and maybe be less curious about the experience on paper and more curious about, do the people that you are interviewing, do they have the mentality to work in sales and to work in a startup? And then one practical way is to do role plays. And also lastly, remember that most likely you are the most motivated and skilled person to do sales, because no one knows the product as well as you do. And a third option then is to potentially hire someone else to free up more time for you to continue doing the sales. That is unfortunately everything that we have for today. So thank you so much, Rasmus, Vera, and Nina, for being here with me today. And also thank you for listening to the Founded Leader podcast. I will speak to you again next time. And if you liked what you hear today, please remember to subscribe, review, and share. Thank you.